Awesome. Welcome everyone to the Law, Public Safety, Corrections, Security Industry panel. To begin, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question that I kind of want you to keep in mind. Do you ever wonder how your future is going to be? Perhaps what your career will be in the future? Because I know that I have. Hello everyone, my name is Diana Serrano and I am your Region 4 Vice President. And I am also a criminal justice student. I think about my future a lot. And Criminal Minds is definitely the inspiration behind my motives to be an FBI agent. And if you're anything like me, you understand how difficult it can be at times to analyze your future. But guess what? I am honored to be able to moderate a discussion with 3 individuals here with us today to help set our minds on the right path. Help me in welcoming Thomas Washburn, the Executive Director for the Law and Public Safety Education Network. Prior to being Executive Director, he spent years in education, participating in programs related to law enforcement, law, forensics, and corrections. Generally regarded as the sage of law and public safety, Washburn has made an impact by writing state and national curriculum for students. But that's not all. He has shared his knowledge by speaking at over 20 conferences, advocating for law enforcement, and continues to do so as an educator. Jeff Branyan, an educator at Truett McConnell University in the Criminal Justice Department. With over 10 years of law enforcement study, 14 years as a special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and 7 years with the Gwinnett County Police Department, Branyan now serves as a chief of the Delanoga City Marshals. With multiple stories and experiences that have influenced his career, Branyan now understands the importance of career readiness for students, which is why he has taken roles as an instructor himself to continue impacting students' lives. And Corey Smith, a firefighter and nationally certified EMT, a part of the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department. He might as well be certified in time management and dedication as well, having enlisted as infantry in the Army National Guard, all while pursuing his dream and working on his fire application process. He currently works at Station 10, known as Bailey's Crossroads, one of the busiest fire stations out of the 38 others in Fairfax County. Everyone help me in welcoming these professionals with a round of applause. To begin our discussion, a question that many wonder is your motive for joining law, public safety, corrections, and the security industry. Anyone can answer.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think the biggest reason I joined is I wanted a job where you feel like you're making a difference, where I don't feel like I'm sitting at a desk every day, punching numbers. And while that may be for some people, I think I speak for most of people here that that's not necessarily what you're looking for. Like I said, the feeling of helping people, doing something different every day, and just generally being able to be on your feet and meet as many different people as possible. That was my driving factor. And also just the physical nature, like to stay active. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I have the same answer as Corey. I want to help people, want to make a difference. And it's you certainly any area of public safety, you're going to have the ability to make a difference in people's lives. And so I think that's why most of us get into this job. It certainly isn't because you're going to get rich or anything like that. It's nice at the end of the day to know you went home and you made a difference today.
So I actually entered the industry in an odd way. I was come out of college. I thought I was going to go in the Air Force, and I was waiting to hear from back. And my dad suggested I look into law enforcement about the same time that my mom did. And I'd never really thought about law enforcement, but it was a really good fit, and I really enjoyed my time there. So sometimes, John Lennon says sometimes life happens while you're making other plans, and that's definitely what happened to me. And I got to work with school resource officer, was the job I finished in. Really, really enjoyed my time participating in that.
Awesome. Well, what is one of your biggest challenges that you have had to overcome within your work?
I guess I'll go first again. I would say that there is a lot of challenges, whether it be just anything in our career field, but I would say time management is what you said I would seem pretty good at. I look better doing it than it actually is in my mind. But time management and dealing with people while you want to help people. A lot of times you're there on, let's say, a really bad day or one of their worst days, and even though they called you, they're not exactly the nicest to you. So, largest challenge being stay calm no matter what, and realize that these people are under a lot of stress, and you are too, but you are trained to deal with these things under stress and to do it in a calm manner. And I'd say, and especially when you're super tired, we work 24-hour shifts and you go out at 3 in the morning to the same place you've already been twice that day for the same thing. You still have to approach it with the same mentality of this time it really could be an emergency, you know? So that would be the toughest challenge, I'd say.
Yeah, I think from the law enforcement side for us, it's seeing man's inhumanity to man. You see terrible things, and um, it's hard to explain. When you look at homicide cases where children are murdered and things like that. I mean, you're going to be exposed to things that normal people aren't going to be exposed to, and so it's being able to process that and compartmentalize that information and continue to do your job. We're not there to grieve for people. We're there to find out what happened and solve cases. And so it's those can be, not everybody can do that. It's not a job that everybody is cut out to do. So the people who do it, I mean, it's a challenge some days, but again, it's very rewarding at the end of the day as well. So yeah, for me, that's probably the hardest thing.
I'd have to take Jeff and go forward with that a little bit more. The humanity side's really a challenge. The first thing you got to learn to do, and this is particularly true, I think, in public safety and policing and law enforcement, corrections for sure, is learn how to realize it's not personal. They are not. A lot of times people are. I remember my first year as a police officer. I had gone in to grab something at a restaurant and came back out, and somebody spit on my car, and I was initially really angry. And then the guy that I worked with said, "You never take it personally. They're not mad at you. They don't know you, just like you don't know them. You represent authority. You represent the government. The badge is a symbol of a lot of things to a lot of people, and you just can't take it personally." And that was some really great advice I took early on. But that is a challenge when someone's just screaming at you for no reason. It's hard. It's really hard. I remember that one of the most hardest times I had not getting angry at somebody was over something really trivial, but he was just being such a jerk. And so sometimes you got to let that roll off. But like Jeff said, I think learning how to compartmentalize what happens on the job. In public safety, you're going to see some terrible things. In policing, you're going to see some terrible people. In corrections, you're spending your day face to face with some really terrible people. And you got to learn not to apply that to all people. You've got to learn to keep your heart soft, but on the job, learn how to kind of harden it during the day for the job, and then kind of compartmentalize it, like Jeff said, as you leave, so that you can go home and you're not taking that stress home. And it's hard. I'll tell you, we have a lot of research that our jobs are some of the toughest, but it's really important, I think, and I think I'd suggest anyone in the career, you've got to learn how to talk to people. You need to learn how to get into groups where you can get support networks. Learn to make friends and in the industry that you can share things with. Very, very important. If you're going into the legal field, you'll see some tough stuff there as well. I mean, people treat people really terribly, and you'll see that too in the legal services. So to me, I'd agree with Jeff that the challenge is keeping your humanity while learning how to deal, for lack of a better term, how to deal with the evil. I mean, that's just really the hard part.
Thank you. Officer Branyan, I know that you were a police officer beforehand, before now as chief. So can you describe how your training was different, like the training and the study, how it was different being in the GIB than being a part of the police department?
Okay, so the GBI is the state in Georgia. It's the state law enforcement investigative agency. So as a uniform officer, I drove a police car, wore a uniform, wrote tickets, worked car accidents, responded to 911, that kind of stuff. As a GBI agent, I was a investigator, so we responded to murders and rapes and child abuse and that type of stuff. Um, Wore plain clothes, so it's a different kind of policing. A lot of times I equate being a uniform officer with being a factory worker. You come in, you work your 8-hour, your 12-hour shift, and then whatever's not finished, the next shift's going to take care of. They're going to catch the next speeder or the next DUI or answer the next domestic dispute. When you're an investigator, you own that case and it lays on your desk until you solve it. So, there's cases that I worked for months, sometimes years at a time. So it's a different kind of work. You get a much more deeper involvement in the case from an investigative side than you get from being a uniform officer. Uniform officer, you kind of to delve into Corey's world for a minute. We go out and put out fires. We go deal with a problem, and hopefully that problem's over here in a short period of time. We might take somebody to jail, or we might not. But from an investigative side, it's a much longer, more drawn out process.
Thank you. That seems so cool. Mr. Smith, what advice could you give to students on time management and patience, especially given the rigorous job that you do?
I'd say one of the largest things is don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether it be a friend or a spouse or family member you're close to, or even the people that you work with. In the beginning, you're going to feel like you can do it all and something is going to suffer. It always does. So, for example, like my wife literally does all my scheduling. So between my Army stuff, which I usually have longer training periods being in a combat specialty. So instead of the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks during the summer, we'd have 3, 4, 5 days each month, and then anywhere from 3 to 4+ weeks during the summer. Now I also have to manage that with my fire schedule, which is it goes 24 hours on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and then 4 days off. So trying to work all that together and like, okay, the military takes precedence over the Army. So do I need to get time off from the fire department? But do I have testing coming up at the fire department that's more important than my training that's going to be for the Army? And then you just have normal life. I mean, obviously, fire and Army are not my entire life. So biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. And I never before used the calendar in my phone. And now every single day I have exactly what needs to be done in my notepad, because you think you'll remember it, you'll forget it for sure. So just figure out an organizational manner that works for you, stick with it. But it's always going to change and you always just got to adapt.
Thank you. Mr. Washburn, seeing as you are an educator yourself and given your position as executive director, why would you stress education as a foundation to law, public safety, corrections, and security?
I think the more educated you get, the more you become aware of other cultures, other nationalities, other issues. You get a broader perspective. Particularly if you study criminal justice as a concentration, you're going to learn more about your craft. But I'd encourage a broader level of studies. One, not everybody needs to go to university level. Technical schools have some phenomenal criminal justice programs and public safety programs. That's always a great option. You can always come out of high school and go to work in private security or in corrections, or sheriff's department. You can go to work at the jail. You can go to work as a firefighter, EMT, start that training. But always be looking to improve your training sets. And even, here I am, retired from teaching and having served in law enforcement, I'm still taking courses. I'm still getting opportunities to improve my educational expanse. So my advice is to not limit your education to just the area of study like criminal justice or fire. Definitely, you need to pick up another language. You definitely need to learn. I would highly recommend Spanish. If you're not bilingual, particularly if you're graduating high school in the next few years, if you're not bilingual, you're going to have a tough time in any career field. But in our particular career field, it's extremely critical you're able to communicate with people, at least a basic functional language skills in Spanish. If your particular area has another area nationality, like community right next to me, there's a huge Korean and Chinese population. Try to learn at least some basic language skills and some basic cultural information about those. At least learn how to say hello, at least learn some basic cultural knowledge. But I feel like education as a whole just improves your craft. Always looking for opportunities to be stronger in your particular area of study, but also look to broaden your horizons so you learn how to connect to people in a better way. And technology, you got to stay on. The technology's constantly changing, and that's something we try to stay on top of as well.
I just want to add that the fact about you don't have to be well versed, but getting an idea of another language, especially Spanish, because it's so prevalent in the United States, is huge. It makes a massive difference when you're talking to people, they're under stress, and you can kind of piece together sentences. You use a lot of hand signals too, but it makes them feel much better and a lot more calm around you and more trusting of you when you can throw in, you know, a few sentences, a few words, and they're immediately like, okay, this person understands me. And when it's a crazy situation, that little bit can make all the difference between, oh, my stomach hurts, to, oh no, I'm bleeding somewhere you can't see, kind of thing. And then that escalates the whole situation. So, I mean, even a podcast on learning a new Spanish word each day can make a huge difference in the long run. That was a great point.
Awesome. Thank you. Now a more general question for whoever would like to answer. How has technology, I know Mr. Washburn kind of touched base on it. How has technology influenced your career?
I'll jump on that one. I was teaching a DNA class this morning of forensics, and I was explaining to the class when I started doing this job, we did blood typing. We had blood at a crime scene. All we could do is they would tell us what type of blood it is, and either it was the same type as your suspect or not. You know, now we have DNA. Technology. I mean, I've been policing for 30 years, and it's unbelievable. We wear body cameras now, which we never would have thought about that. We now have Bluetooth on our taser. So when I turn my taser on, my body camera comes on automatically. We have a sensor in the holster. When I draw my gun out of the holster, my body camera and everybody around me's body camera turns on automatically. So technology is it's constantly changing. And you have to be able to adapt and keep up. And so as you get older, it gets harder. I'm often going to my kids going, hey, make my iPhone work, do this. So it's super important to stay on top of the technology, because I can't imagine what the technology is going to be 30 years from now for the people that are getting in the industry right now.
Awesome. Thank you. And what tip can you provide to students to be successful in this industry?
I guess I'll go real quick. Don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of people come into, especially the fire service, some people have volunteered for 10 years. Other people have zero experience with fire, anything, let alone using tools, not even working on a car. So in my academy class, we had everybody from somebody who's had 12 plus years, all the way to somebody who was their high 30s, down to somebody who was 20 years old and who had never worked on anything. And it's, don't be afraid to ask for help. It might seem intimidating at first, but once you get close to those people, especially when you graduate and go to your station, practicing things wrong on your own is only going to cement that wrong in your mind. And then when you are in the field, you're going to do it wrong. And just like the same with police officers and everything, everybody is watching you. When you pull up with flashing lights, no matter what type of vehicle, everybody turns and everybody's watching everything you do. So I would say that'd be one of the biggest things. And just be prepared to work hard and always work hard. And like Jeff was saying with technology, it's, in the years I've been in the fire department, it's gone leaps and bounds, and that hasn't been all that long. So like you said, I can only imagine, but that training, you have to be training all the time. If you think you're good enough at something, then you know, it might not be the job for you, because these are jobs where you got to train constantly and expect that that's what you will do, and others around you will do the same.
Yeah, I would say in law enforcement, especially, if you want to be successful in this job, the number one thing is integrity. You know, people are watching us. We're under a microscope. They are looking for um, officers to make mistakes and to do things wrong, and they become big media cases when it happens. And so, what we desperately need in public safety are people that have good morals and ethics and are going to make right decisions. They're going to treat people appropriately every time. And so, when I hire people, that's part of my job now. Those are the things I'm looking for. People that I'm going to give this person a gun and a car and a taser, and I'm going to send them out into the world to interact with the public. I have to have confidence that they can make good decisions and they're going to treat people ethically and morally as they should. So for us, that's the biggest thing that we're looking at.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Washburn, what fields of study would you encourage students to take advantage of in order to be successful?
It's actually a great question. And because we're a broad field from legal services to corrections, I think one thing people underestimate is the languages. We'll reinforce that is you've got to be conversational. Like Corey said, I mean, even if it's just knowing how to greet people in their language, it makes people feel more at ease. So languages, technology, we bounced all over that, but that is massive. In fact, if you want to get into a federal agency or something really high up, if you've got coding or some STEM technology, science background, you'll move a lot faster into those positions. I know Jeff's undergrad. I think Jeff, your undergrad was journalism, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so my undergrad was political science. So your education's important, but I think to get back to the point is what's going to prepare you. Like, let's say high school, stay involved with like SkillsUSA, because that's going to teach you leadership. It's going to make you comfortable public speaking. Other educational opportunities in the high school, look for ways to expand your horizons culturally and experiential. If you've grown up in the same area, you've been in kind of your whole life, take that church at your religious institution, maybe taking you somewhere into another state, or if your school's doing a trip to another state, you want to try to expand your horizons, expand your experiences. SkillsUSA is a big vehicle for that as well. As you're looking for post-secondary, definitely, again, the 4-year degree is not necessarily the best choice. There are some that are required. If you think about being an attorney, obviously you're going to have a 4-year degree. You're looking at going into federal agencies, but a lot of police agencies, a lot of public safety agencies would just as soon you have a really great 2-year degree from a technical college or community college to get a start off. And then another thing to think about is when I came in, I started off, my first career path was in corporate. My second career path was in policing. My final career path was in education. So one thing you've got to keep your mindset in is that you're going to constantly be teaching yourself new stuff, taking new directions in classes. If you want to grow in a field, let's say you want to go into become a police chief or a fire chief, you're going to need to be looking at, going back to a university and getting, some degree work. But that's not necessarily something you need to do at 18, 19. Get into the careers, find the career that you love. I've got a really good friend who's much younger. He's my nephew, and he started off thinking he was going to go EMT, EMR, got into it and loved it, decided he wants to go into nursing, and they have a really great bridge program to go into nursing. And so, but that mindset, you're never finished in education. Don't think of your degree, finishing high school diploma, you're done. You're going to have a whole lifetime of continuing education through your profession. And then you're going to need to be looking at opportunities, because the education that you carry is what's going to qualify you for the next job. The more the more the more you're going to be able to move and improve. And so look for extracurricular and co-curricular opportunities like SkillsUSA. Look for opportunities to expand your horizons and your experiences, maybe even do a study abroad if your schools offer those kind of things. And then look for, realize you're going to be educating your whole life. It's never going to end. Like Jeff mentioned, I know he's taking classes. I'm still taking classes. I'm sure Corey's still taking classes. It never ends, but that's what's going to make you the best. That's what's going to make you move up and get promoted. And that's what's going to open a lot of opportunities for you. So look forward to it. And I've become to where I really enjoy getting training. I actually like it because it's really neat to get the new updated information and see where things are going and keeping yourself well educated.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, how can you describe the similarities and differences of your work ethic as an infantry in the Army National Guard and also as a firefighter?
Well, one of the topics we discussed was being able to work with people of all different backgrounds. So where I work in Fairfax, we are right up against DC. So we have every type of nationality you can think of. When I went to Fort Benning, I lived 4 months, inches away from guys who came from like high income homes. We had people, their only option was the military, coming from very low income project areas to people from overseas who were here, and joining the military was also the way for them to get their citizenship. So you had guys living inches away who, like a white guy who had never even seen a black guy in his entire life, let alone how do they interact. And I'm a big proponent of maybe not a combat arms like I'm in, but everybody should have a little military time because you learn how to work with every single type of person. And I think there would be a lot less problems if people interacted with other kinds a little bit more. That's just my personal opinion. But the two have branched over because just working with a lot of different people, I'm higher up in the military than I am technically in the fire department. So knowing when to be a subordinate and what kind of questions to ask, but also knowing when you need to be somebody who is technically superior and help those younger guys. Because just like when you're out on the scene or something like that, these younger guys are always watching you and they're going to model their behavior after you. So the leadership aspect goes back and forth between the military and the fire department. And also learning how to be calm under stress. Military, you got weapons firing around you, you got orders being thrown, this, that, and the other. Fire department, it doesn't just have to be a fire. It could be a bad car crash. Now you're working with yourself, another jurisdiction, plus you're working with the police officers, and you got to know how to be calm because people shouting doesn't get anything done. So knowing how to remain calm and know that there are going to be other people who aren't as calm as you. So take charge when you need to and step back when you know you need to.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Brennan, how did working with the GBI influence your time as an officer and now chief of the Dahlonega City Marshals?
Yeah, I think all of the experience you have kind of molds you into who you are. So, I worked as a uniform officer. I spent some time as a school resource officer. And then I spent, a great deal of time as a GBI agent. And so it let me work lots of different kinds of cases, interact with lots of different kinds of people. So I would like to think as a chief now, I can empathize with employees. I know what it's like to ride a shift. I know what it's like to work all night long. I know what it's like to respond to domestic dispute cases, So hopefully that makes me a better supervisor because I understand what they're going through. I also try to understand what do they need? When I was on the road, what kind of equipment did I want? What kind of training did I need? And then now I'm in a position where I can provide those things for my employees. So I think all of the experiences you have in public safety are great, and they're all going to help you as you progress. So hopefully, as your students are getting in, you're going to come into law enforcement as an officer working in a jail or as a rookie officer on the road. But everybody wants to become a sergeant or become a lieutenant and become a captain and work their way up, be a detective. And all those experiences, I think, help make you what you are.
Thank you. Here's another general question. What would you consider crucial to add on a resume? Especially since you guys said that you have had times where you are hiring people. What would you want on a resume, or what would you think is crucial to add on a resume for someone?
Well, I hire a lot of folks, so I can tell you the things that I look for. I look for education. whether it be an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a technical college certificate. I want to know what kind of training do they have. I look for any job experience. If it's remotely related, when I ran the crime scene unit, I hired an employee one time who had worked at a photo studio, and she had managed a photo studio. Well, in crime scene, we do a tremendous amount of photography. So although she didn't have any crime scene experience, she had a related field that was very helpful for us, because she understood the fundamentals of photography and how to shoot a scene properly, those types of things. So for students coming out of high school, things like skills is going to be great. You know, if I know that they're in this program, that's something I'm going to look for. I look for other leadership opportunities. If they're Eagle Scouts, put that on a resume. I want to know that. If they're involved in a community group, if they're church, if they do civic work, I want to know those kinds of things, because again, I'm looking for the whole person. I want to know what, how do they interact with the people, how do they get along with folks. In the simplest terms, public safety, we're problem solvers. And so I'm looking for people that can solve problems. And if they have that ability to talk and think logically, that's what we're looking for.
Awesome. Go ahead, Mr. Washburn.
I think they're also going to be looking for broad-based experiences, diversity of experiences. They're going to be looking, like Jeff said, community service. Because particularly if you're coming out of high school, there's not a lot of you've not had a lot of opportunities, but you can put things in like, if you were on a traveling, say, traveling baseball team or traveling softball team, that shows dedication, responsibility, and leadership. And so don't dismiss things on that resume. Think about as a whole what demonstrates you as a person that's had experiences, responsibilities, demonstrates leadership, demonstrates commitment. That's what they're looking for. Jeff mentioned earlier, character is huge. So, if you volunteered at your mosque and helped with the children, put that on your resume. Put put things that shows that you've been involved in the community, you're willing to serve. They're looking for those things. And as Jeff mentioned, education, of course, is big. But again, I don't want you to over focus on the 4-year degree, because in a lot of, particularly EMT and fire, they're looking more that you've had, CPR training, and you've had, opportunities and that kind of stuff. So, just definitely broad-based experiences. And I mentioned it earlier, and I know I keep saying it, a secondary language. That is, even you're just conversational. I had a student one year that decided he wanted to be conversational in Spanish, and we have a very large Spanish speaking population at the school I was at the time. And he actually hung out with his friends from the program and insisted they speak Spanish to him. So we begin to learn, particularly how people speak it, not necessarily that formal Don Quixote stuff, but how you communicate with people in the community. Things like that are really important, as is technology. If you know how to build a website, that's something that, so a lot of those agencies, they're not that smart in tech. So, think of everything you bring in, they're looking for all that. I know federal agencies are looking for the technology and the broad-based experiences, but the FBI, I got a good friend that's, he runs the Atlanta office. They hired a young girl who was a kindergarten teacher, because she had broad experiences. That brought a unique angle to their table. So be prepared to market yourself, get a great resume, and think of those kind of things.
Awesome, thank you. Now that we have kind of had a little bit of thoughts and experiences being shared, let's open up the floor to our attendees so that they can ask questions as well. So please use the Q&A feature in order for you to send in your questions, and that way I can read them out loud and our panelists can answer a few. Okay, we have one. It says, Chief Branyan, what is your current difficulty in recruitment law enforcement in the current state of the county toward law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a good one. So most of us in public safety will say it hasn't been the best year in public safety, with public perception, riots, some of the things we've seen going on. So, it makes recruiting more difficult for us. How do I go out and recruit students and say, hey, you want to come do this job? And people are going to, throw rocks at you and shoot at you. And some political folks want to take money away from the department and defund police and all those kinds of things. So those pose challenges for us. They do. Like me and like Corey, I think, said it very well. We get in this job because we want to help people, and I still think those people are out there. So my job as a chief is to find those people. the people that want to help people. Public safety is it's a calling, I believe, like any other, like being in medical profession or being in the ministry of some kind. So yeah, it has been a little more difficult. People aren't beating the doors down to be police officers right now. And we just have to do the best we can do. I'm very fortunate. I'm in a very small department now. I don't have any openings. And when I do have openings, I have lots of people that want to apply. Because we're a small agency, we buy nice equipment, we train our folks well, we treat them right. And so they want to come to work for us. But it's, you look at like Atlanta Police Department, where they have over 2,000 officers right now. I think Atlanta said they had 200 or 300 openings. So places, bigger agencies are having a hard time filling spots. They just really are. But it's good if you're a student trying to get a job because they're out there.
If I could add one point to that, if anybody is on the fence about, say, becoming a police officer or something, one of the things about working, with the fire and rescue department is we work with the officers every single day. They, on their breaks, they come to our firehouse when they need to type their reports. They have dinner with us all the time. And working with them on so many different calls and everything, the vast majority, I would say, of citizens do not have a negative view of police officers. The media would like you to think that that is the case. From everything I've seen, and even growing up, that is 100% not the case. So if that's what's keeping you from joining, I think maybe you need to do some ride-alongs. Maybe you need to, you can even visit firehouses and talk. We always have officers there too. So look at it from a little bit different perspective versus just what you see on TV and what you see on Facebook. And in the end, remember that like the officers, they're people too. They get stressed out too. But in the end, they took that job because they want to be there to help you. When you're in trouble, they are some of the first ones there, if not us, or vice versa. And just don't believe everything you see on TV. Go and talk to them face to face before you make a judgment. And I think being a police officer is a great career, benefits, everything like that. So keep that in mind when you decide to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I can tell you that we in the last year we've seen all the stuff on the news, we've seen the protests and all those kind of things. I have also had more people in the last year walk up to me and say, "Hey, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do." I get that way more than I get people saying, "Oh, we don't like the police. We think you guys are bad." So the majority of the people we interact with are very appreciative and go out of their way to tell us that. And I've been in restaurants eating, and I'll go to get my check to leave, and they'll say, "Oh, somebody in the restaurant paid for you. They said tell you thank you for your service." Those kind of things happen to us. And I've actually seen more of it lately than less, because I think people see the news and they're like, "Wow, we feel bad for the way these officers are being portrayed." There's bad people in every profession, and so we know that when we have bad people in law enforcement, we need to root them out, and we try to do a good job of making sure that happens. But yeah, don't hesitate to get in the profession. It's a great profession.
But also remember, Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see." And I know, like when Jeff and I got into law enforcement when we were kids was kind of gruff and tough, and they were kind of standoffish. And Jeff and I, we were the generation that brought community policing in and got to be kind of more the officer friendly side. And every generation brings its own flavor to our law and public safety services. And so I encourage you, if you're young and idealistic, get involved with law enforcement. You'll come in and learn a lot about the program, and you'll help us improve, because there are angles improvement. We do need to do a better job. And certainly some departments need some drastic change. But you'll find a vast majority of the departments are already doing a lot of changes and have already made a lot of adjustments. But don't let the events of this year scare you off. My own son, my eldest, is 22. He can't wait to get in a patrol car. He is so excited about the career, and this year has made him, rethink that. But he's extra committed. In your heart, you've got that sheepdog. I know it's kind of a cheesy reference, but if you're that kid that always kind of protects other people, if you're that kid. I remember when I was like second grade, this girl was getting bullied on the playground, and I don't know why I went over there and got in between her and 3 6th graders. But if you're that kid who just can't stand seeing people hurt, you can't stand seeing people, you need to go into law and public safety. It's your calling, it's your heart, it's what you want to do. And I think, that don't let anything stop you from pursuing that dream but I also want to remind you, the younger generation, you're going to bring changes into the police and public safety fields that we need. Jeff and I brought attitudes into our department. We changed, I remember the old guys in the department all, being all crusty and stuff. And, the department, y'all have to remember, in Georgia, it wasn't until 1980 that you had to go to the police academy. I mean, people were given badges and guns in 1979 with no training. Policing is an emerging field. Law and fire, that's emerging fields. We're all growing, and we're moving into this community-oriented type policing set. And I think the events from this year are going to fire some good changes. I think we're going to see some great changes come through that needed to be done. We're seeing a lot more accountability. We're seeing a lot more police cameras. I would have loved to have had a camera when I was a cop, because you can show that's what happened. And so some great changes are coming through. Another thing I love about the changes in law enforcement, seeing a lot more young women come into the career field. And that's because of technology like tasers, but also a heart to serve. And so just encourage you to get in the field and bring with you your ideals. And we welcome you to come in.
Awesome, thank you. We have two similar questions that say if ROTC or NJR ROTC would be good to help you get into public safety or good to put on a job application.
I would say 100%. They teach you rank structure. They teach you how to listen to authority, how to work with others. And they give you also just general life skills that, like, a lot of high school classes and stuff just don't give you. Yeah, I think there would be absolutely no negative in putting that on there, unless you somehow are going for a job that said, we don't want you to ever like the military, which I would never see that. But yeah, if you're doing it or plan on doing it, I would say go for it. Yeah, that's really all I can say about that.
I've never met someone who has interviewed for a job or someone who's hiring a job who has not looked at an application with military experience or JRTC and thought anything but positive. You learn discipline, you learn how to take orders, you learn how to lead. There's no way. And in fact, for you young folks, it's a great way to get into law enforcement, fire, and public safety. All of the military, particularly the Army, has law enforcement, has fire services, has battle medics. Battlefield medics come straight out of the military and directly into our public safety programs and departments nationwide. It's a fantastic way to get into. If you're 18 years old, you can't. A guy that I'm good friends with, Tim Hart, he couldn't wait to be a cop, so he joined the Marines and became an MP at 18 because he had to wait to 21 in Miami-Dade to be able to be a police officer. You can get involved early. They got great training. Talk to your recruiters, and then it's also a great way to get educated. I have two former students just graduated from law school that went through the Navy. Both of them did Navy and did the naval program to get the Navy paid for them to become attorneys. And so they're going to serve, I think it's 6 years, and they can come out and do private practice. And so if you're looking for a way to pay for law school, you're looking for a way to get a college education, or just simply something to do at 18 for a few years until you can become a police officer, or maybe you want to do the training for fire services through the military, phenomenal opportunity to do so.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question that says, is it required to be a police officer to work as a criminalist, crime scene investigator, or forensic behavior analyst / profiler? Sorry.
No, it's not. So there's a couple of schools of thought. My computer just is something weird. Am I still here?
Yes, you are.
Still there.
Okay. I wasn't sure. So the old school is the way I got in it, where I got hired as a police officer, got promoted to detective, and then I eventually got assigned to a crime scene position, went to school, got trained as a crime scene specialist. So that's one way. What a lot of agencies are doing now is they're hiring civilian employees. So like when I was at Gwinnett County Police, I had 20 full-time crime scene investigators that worked for me. I hired students right out of college, no experience, and we would train them. We did not send them to the academy. They were not police officers. They didn't carry badges and guns. They didn't arrest people. That allowed me to spend my training money on forensic specific training, which is very helpful. So it just depends on what agency you're working for. Some agencies say, no, we want you to be an officer and have arrest powers. Some agencies say, we'll hire you, send you to school, and you don't have to be an officer. So again, there's options for either way.
I would throw a caveat, though, that if you're looking to be like a criminal profiler, the FBI is pretty much the only one, some state police agencies, some of the larger police agencies. And also, if you want to be a homicide detective, to go into detective work, you usually have to have a police background. But to work crime scene, to be a crime scene tech, those are jobs that can be accessible without being in law enforcement. But I think if you're thinking about, like you see on TV, the ones who investigate the homicides, and that would probably require some time in the streets.
Awesome, thank you. Another question says, do you guys think, or for those of us interested in being part of law and public safety, do you guys think having a job as an MP or firefighter in the military is viewed more favorably than the civilian aspect of it?
I don't know that we would view it any more favorably. I love people with military experience. So if I get somebody comes to me and they've been an MP, there's certain things that I know they're going to know. They're going to know how to handle a weapon. They're going to know how to do mechanics of arrest and that kind of stuff. What they're not going to know from being an MP is they're not going to know what does state law look like, because they're going to be enforcing military law. So there's going to be some things that they're going to have to learn that are going to be a little bit different, but that's okay. They're going to have a foundation that's common among all of us in law enforcement. So yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming it's very similar on the fire side. Fire doesn't have the law angle as much as we have. They have some they deal with. But yeah, anytime somebody comes to us, even like if I hire, like I'm in Georgia, if I hire an officer from Florida, again, they're going to understand all the policing stuff, but I'm still going to have to teach them Georgia law because Florida's laws are a little bit different than they are in Georgia. So the basic fundamental experience we always look favorably on, and then we can teach them what they're going to have to know that's going to be different.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit it right on the head. I mean, it's, like you said, I don't think it's necessarily more favorable, but I think it will give you a personal leg up when you go in and knowing how to deal with a rank structure and aspects like that. But you do things different in the military than you do on the public sector. So they do intertwine, but at the same time, I'd say there's more differences than there are similarities, but it's definitely going to be a huge benefit to each individual person to go about that. Maybe not in the application process. It depends. My county right now is actually starting an initiative to try and recruit more former military, at least for the application process. Our application process takes roughly 1.5 to 2 years. So we go through a pretty decent vetting process, and it goes back. Just because you were in the military or just because you were a firefighter or a police officer doesn't necessarily mean you all of a sudden meet the standards of wherever you're trying to go. So have the confidence that it can help you personally, but don't think, oh, I was in the military, that I'm going to jump ahead of everybody. It does not work that way. And we've had some people get some harsh reminders of that. So
I'll tell you the thing that I like about military, and this goes even to junior ROTC, they know how to wear a uniform. And that sounds like a really dumb thing, but when I get a brand new officer in, appearance is important. It's part of our credibility. It's part of being able to interact with the public. And I get a guy out of the military, they know how to wear a uniform. They know how to keep their shoes shined. They know how to make sure their pants are pressed. So they look right and they represent our agencies well. And so, that coming through the door is a great thing for us.
One thing to consider with military experience as well is federal agencies. If you're thinking about going federal, they do like people with military experience, and it does move you a little faster. Corey was mentioning it doesn't move you through the process quicker, but I think it does move you up the stack of applications. I think it makes you stand out a little bit better. Also, something to think about is if you're going to move into upper level leadership positions, if your goal is a career in fire service, that military experience I think is going to help you. I think it's because just your leadership, your confidence, that's going to improve your opportunities to move up. Another thing to think about is that a lot of times you come out with that GI Bill. So maybe you're from an income bracket. You know, my mom was a single mom, school teacher. You know, we sometimes struggle to pay for college. When you come out of the military, you almost always have a GI Bill that's accompanying you to help you with your financing your education. And then, of course, there's the discounts at Six Flags. You can't dismiss those.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Who has influenced or impacted your time in the industry?
I think,
Oh, go ahead.
so it's, I think everybody, like I said, I've been in this business 30 years and I've run across a lot of people. You know, I look back, my training officer, originally my field training officer, the guy I rode around a patrol car with, and said, let me show you how to pull a car over. Let me show you how to search somebody. You know, those people have huge impacts. The other thing that's impacted me a lot is bad employees. I had some bad supervisors along the way, and those had a profound impact on me because I looked at that and said, okay, why did I not like working for that individual? And then what can I do to not be that guy? So I think you have to look at the good and the bad and draw influences from those as you move forward. So I said I had some really good bosses over the years, and so I look at what did they do that I liked, and I try to replicate that. And then I have bosses that I didn't care so much for, and I look, okay, what did they do that I wasn't happy about, and how do I not replicate that in my job?
I would just say, obviously, I haven't been in my career near as long as these two gentlemen, but what influenced me to get into it was just a lot of it had to do with like the community sense. You know, I mean, most people like firefighters, you know, but just being able back in the day as a kid, you know, ride our bikes and we could go to the firehouse, which unfortunately with COVID, we can't just let people in right now, but going and seeing the trucks, seeing the engines. I mean, just remember being mesmerized as a kid. You see the big ladder truck go flying past with full lights and sirens, and you're like, oh my God, or see them, you know, at the grocery store or something and see it parked outside. It was just always that fascination. And then just more personal experiences I won't go into, but seeing them do what they do and as a younger kid thinking like, man, that's almost like a superhero, you know, and just, yeah, just basically just being in awe and then seeing all the training and all the tools they knew how to use and stuff like that. And I think that's what really drove me to it. And one experience was back when we lived in Germany. I was born there. They had an apartment that burned out, and we were across the street, and we saw all the firefighters come. And I remember watching them go in, and you're like, how in the world, you know, would somebody ever do that? And I was probably 5 years old, and that has stuck with me forever. So doing that now, being on the other side, you know, a lot of it is also for the adrenaline. I mean, it's fun. You should enjoy your job, and I enjoy every day being different. But yeah, just those past experiences like that, being younger and just seeing something that I thought was bigger than myself and wanting to do that. And now that I do it, I'm like, oh, they're not that big and bad. So, but
I think I'd like to address influence as a whole. You know, even right now in high school, as you go into careers, like produces like. Whoever you're hanging around, you're going to become like. So look at the room of kids you hang out with or your friends right now. Where are they going to be in 10 years? If you laugh about that, then why are you hanging out with them? And that's very true in law and public safety. There's, you know, look at the guys that are moving and the gals that are moving up the rank structure. Look at the girl that's really modeling the performance standards. Look at the guy that's really gung ho, and try to be around those people. Surround yourself with the people you want to be like. And just like the Jewish proverb, the companion of fools suffers harm. If you're hanging out with people making stupid decisions, it's going to cost you as well. So, you know, I remember very early on, I was in a circumstance where I was with a partner that I didn't have any control over, but he made some pretty dumb decisions and got me in trouble as well. And so you got to be really careful as a young adult, particularly. They're going to dig into your background. As Corey was mentioning, they're going to spend a year and a half vetting you. You can't be hanging out with idiots right now. You've got to be, you know, really, I mean, you don't need to be hanging out with choir boys either, but, you need to be around kids making good decisions. You need to be super careful. And I'll tell you a story really quick. Had a student want to go in law enforcement his junior year, started hanging around this kid. A lot of people are saying, wasn't a good kid. The kid jumped out of his car, grabbed a woman's purse, jumped back in the car and told my student to drive. He's been in prison for 5 years. So you got to be super careful. That proverb's very important. The companion of fools suffers harm. Do not hang around fools. They will get you in trouble. And once you get into industry, follow those people. Find a mentor. Find somebody that's above you that you're like, man, that's the person I want to be. Just seek their advice. Spend time with them. By the same token, look down. Who's some people coming in that you can influence positively. That's true in SkillsUSA. That's true in high school programs. That's true in fire departments. It's true in life. Look for someone that you want to be like, and look at somebody below you that wants to be like you, and help them up, and then look for the guy above you or the girl above you that you really want to model. Influencing is incredibly important. Don't waste your time being with people that are going to drag you down.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to add on that is you're going to make decisions now as a high school student and decisions as a college student that may impact your ability to get a job, and you may not even realize that. I had an intern working for me when I was in the crime scene unit. Great intern. We loved her. She graduated. We offered her a job. During the background investigation, it came out that she had taken her roommate's prescription medication during college to stay up studying for exams, took some Adderall. That's a felony. Any felony drug use is an automatic exclusion. So they pick up the phone and call, say she's out. She sat in my office and cried. She said, I had no idea 3 years ago when I took my roommate's medicine that it would keep me from getting a job that I really, really want. And I couldn't do anything to help her. I mean, it was a policy. And, it came up during the background investigation, and she's excluded. So she could not have a job working in our agency. So think about the decisions you're making as a high school student and as a college student, because some of those decisions can impact your career opportunities down the road.
Thank you. So since we're almost out of time, I just want to go ahead and say thank you so much for your service. And thank you also for your outstanding responses and your work in law, public safety, corrections, and the security industry. Thank you for having and currently protecting our communities. Everyone using your chat feature, let's give them a round of applause. Oh, I just realized you guys can't use the chat feature. So just everyone give them a round of applause virtually. Although thinking about the future may be difficult, I hope that today and what our panelists had to say today ease that thought a little bit. Mr. Washburn, Branyan, and Mr. Smith all gave amazing reasons as to why one should never give up and always continue aiming for career success. If you are interested in a career within law, public safety, corrections, and security, or even in another industry, we encourage you to be on the lookout and engage on SkillsUSA Connect and on the Career Cluster Forum. Be on the lookout for that because it is going to be posted soon. Also, the video of this discussion will be posted on SkillsUSA Connect after this event is over, so you can always look back on it and prepare for your career success. Thank you to everyone who participated with your questions, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you so much to the panelists.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Happiness is the truth, because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is. Hey, hey. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on. It might seem crazy.